thank you for joining us. And thanks for having us here. We are John and Gayle, and our restaurant is Foreign Cinema.
And we're very happy that it was a very exciting class, and we understand there was a long waiting list. So we're so
You
pleased.
won.
Yeah, we're so pleased to have you with us today. And
you could have sold your seats.
So we're here to just do a little work out of the book that we wrote basically for home cooks. And it took us a long time to write it. It kind of comes at a time when the restaurant has been around for a while. We've been doing this for a long time, but we wrote the book in 2017, and it came out in 2018. And this year, 2019, we celebrate 20 years. So there's sort of a lot going on. But we're here to sort of bring to life some of these recipes that we really believe in. And Google wanted us to choose plant-driven recipes. But in the book, you see there's everything in there. There's a shellfish chapter. There's a meat chapter. There's side dishes.
Desserts, brunches.
And brunch. So there's a bonus brunch chapter, which we're very famous for. So if you thumb through it, you'll realize you have the full gamut, the full story of foreign cinema, and also how foreign cinema came to be. So there's a lot in there. And even though we're just doing 3 recipes today, there's so much in there that will bring you joy at home, because cooking at home can be hard, and buying produce and proteins.
Cooking at home's easy. That's why you all go out to dinners, right? It's so convenient to go to the grocery store and shop.
Well, we wanted to make the book very user-friendly, very home cook-centric, so it was not intimidating, but rather more inspiring. So the recipes are really written for people at home in home kitchens.
And it was all tested at homes and whatnot. So it's very simple. We wanted to make sure that recipes chosen today were something that are really easy to make.
Right.
And please, if you have questions, just
raise your hand.
And just yell it out. Just go for it. Questions about anything, it's fine.
Yes.
Just to let you know, Foreign Cinema is now celebrating 20 years this September with a big event on September 19th. And we started 20 years ago. And if you have not been, it's a really kind of an interesting site on Mission Street between 21st and 22nd. That was at one time several different businesses in one building. And now we have the whole building. It's a big building, and there's 2 or 3 big dining rooms, one inside, one outside, one sort of a private gallery room. And there's a lot of really great pictures in the book that give you an idea of what the place is about. And it's been, a challenging 20 years to keep this place moving forward. But it's been a lot of fun and rewarding. And we've done a lot of really cool stuff. And as you know, we show movies every night. And we still run one of 3, I believe 3, 35 millimeter projectors in the city. So we do have 35 millimeter film delivered each month. That's got to go through a process of getting loaded into the projector. And then we have projectionists come and show the movies. So it's a big deal. We show those movies on film 3 nights a week.
And it's pretty unique. And the reason why our book has this on the cover is because
it's the restaurant.
It's the restaurant. And usually publishers for a cookbook, they want the money food shot, the sexy grilled quail or whatever, but not one dish would personify or sum up our establishment. So really, this is sort of the epitome of what the restaurant is, which is a very magical and enchanted space. So we have this huge white wall that was, it's a cinder block wall, and it was painted white, and so that's where the films are projected. So in the daytime, there are no films because we have to wait for the natural light to turn to dark. So at dusk, throughout the years when the film begins. So we fought to get this picture on the cover, and we're so glad we did, because it really sums up the enchantment of the space. So, but if you guys have questions, please ask.
Without further ado, so we had chosen a few simple things. One is ceviche, which is pretty simple. And I'm sure everybody kind of likes eating raw fish to some extent. And this one's sort of in a marinade. It is orange juice, lemon, or lemon. I get them mixed up. Jalapeno, onions. It doesn't take a lot to bring this together. You can, if you had an orange, that's probably all you need. We got this beautiful piece of sea bass, which is a great fish for
Dee
ceviche.
Dee, your chef, she works with our same purveyor. So it's really this tight little network of Bay Area people. So this sea bass came from Monterey Fish. Dee works with Monterey Fish every day. So we all work with Monterey Fish. So this is the fish that we would get at Foreign Cinema is what you're getting right now.
And, you know, most likely you guys can buy this with the skin off. I just was going to have a little fun here, taking the skin off. Hopefully I do it well. It comes off pretty easy if you just take a sharp knife and you cut through on the bottom of the fish. You can get the skin off.
So he's using the weight of the fish to kind of keep it plumb so it's easy to remove the skin.
There we have that.
Here you go.
And we don't need that. So it's a beautiful piece of white sea bass.
So
and
Santa Barbara,
we need
Dee?
about 8
You think Santa
ounces
Barbara
of it.
or San Diego? Yeah. It's a California coastal sea bass.
And we're just going to cut it into little cubes, which is pretty easy.
And this sea bass is just absolutely stunning. This is sushi grade sea bass. You could eat it just like this.
You'll be eating it raw anyway.
And we're just doing something that we do every night with our seafood platters called fruitimares, and then we do them on different sizes. But we will feature a raw ceviche with our selected oysters and other shellfish that we present on the fruitimares. This might come in a scallop or crab shell on top of the seafood platter, and we do this every night with whatever the fish is that day. So you can also have this be a main course or a light snack or just a fun way to treat fish. It's very simple, but you have to have really good quality fish. So you want to pick really, really fresh fish and do very little to it. Today, we're following the recipe out of the book, and because it's summertime, Chef Dee had these beautiful plum cherry tomatoes, organic. So we're going to add those to the finished product. So for ceviche, you basically need fat, salt, aromatics, and very good fish. Today we've just used a series of fresh citrus, but you can also use white wine vinegar, distilled vinegar, champagne vinegar.
After you've gone through the joy of cutting it up, there you go. So we're not really measuring today. We're going to pretend to measure, but you have to actually bring out your tablespoons and everything because the recipes are so exact. I'm kidding. So it said about 4 tablespoons of orange juice. That looks like about 4 tablespoons of orange juice.
Why we use orange juice is because it's a little sweet, you know, but it's a natural sugar.
What does it say? A teaspoon. It says 2 teaspoons of lemon juice and 1 of lime.
And we're just squeezing it in there. And again, you can just use straight lemon juice if that's all you have at your house, or just lime juice. We've done really basic ceviches to incredibly complex ceviches. This ceviche is just so crowd pleasing because it hits all the marks of those flavor qualities. When you taste it, you're really going to be quite surprised at how fresh and palate exciting it is. So we also have some diced jalapeno here if you want to add it.
I know, but they wanted to know how to dice one.
Yeah, so we sometimes people pull out the seeds.
You know, sometimes they say the seeds have all the spice. They have a little bit more oil in them. Generally, kind of strip them out. So it depends on how spicy you want something. Yeah. You want to kind of keep your fingers off it because it does have really spicy oils, especially on the inside.
And what's important is after you touch up a pepper, fresh peppers, wash your hands. Don't rub your eyes.
First thing you want to do is rub your eyes. So we have 2 elements or 3 elements in there already.
Should I add the fish to the bowl?
Sure.
Or should I wait?
The fish.
Okay. So
this is where it gets really technical.
Yeah, we're just combining all the ingredients. So we're going to add the jalapeno, the red onion.
We have some onions. We already cut up. If you cut up an onion, it's pretty simple. Doesn't really take much. You can do a couple ways, but if you just come down I think one thing that's important whenever you cook is you have sharp knives. Because if your knives are sharp, it's a lot easier. People always tend to think that if they're sharp, they're going to end up cutting themselves. But really, you'll end up cutting yourself more if they're not sharp.
And Dee Dee has really sharp knives, Chef Dee Dee.
Unfortunately, it's
We're
not
very
my knife.
pleased. All right.
So
I'm just doing tomatoes
we're
on
going to
this
throw in a
end.
tablespoon of that. There we go. The fun thing about this dish is it's really easy to pull together quickly. We'll put in a pinch of cilantro. And then, of course, salt. Where would you be without salt?
That's it. Olive oil too, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna put in some oil. Now, okay, that was really hard. So, anyway, if you want, you can always add you can add more acid, like lime juice, if you wanted a little tartar. You can always add more onion if you want more onion. We're going to add the cherry tomatoes for fun. We're going to put in a little bit of oil here. We have no red onions, fine.
We're good.
And just a tiny bit of oil. Oil's really good, it's fat, and fat's really tasty.
So we do this to order at the restaurant. Ceviches can.
That's why it takes so long to get it.
Ceviches can marinate. So if you wanted to do this at a party, you could, get it done early and then go about other tasks. When you come home, it's basically done. And so the ceviche that you will taste will have been marinated for maybe 90 minutes or 2 hours. It is stunning. I've tried it. It's great. So ours is a la minute. It'll have different color. The fish will turn white as the acid penetrates the protein of the fish, so it'll look white, and it is theoretically cooked. So it can be in your fridge for 1 day at least, up to 2 days if it's held very, very carefully.
The history of it, it's sort of a South American Peruvian style dish, and it's basically fish cooked in acids, as opposed to fish cooked, in some other method.
We're serving it with tortilla chips. And then
it's pretty easy. Tortilla chips.
Toasts.
Croutons, tortilla chips, papadum, whatever.
And then it's basically ready to go for your.
Oh yeah, we'll garnish it here. This is how they'll know you're a real chef.
Yeah.
Put little garnishes. As long as you garnish it up, that'll be it. Then you could always do a couple little tiny sticks here just for fun.
Any questions?
I'm going to rub my eyes now and cry the
great.
rest of the day. There we go.
We just didn't. We wanted the recipes to fit on a page. When you opened up the book on any page, your eye could take in the ingredients and the process, and you would be inspired. Like the whole idea was, if you were looking at it in a bookstore, and you could look at the page, you go, oh, and look at the image, you go, oh, wait, I can do that. So yeah, we kind of kept some things out just so they wouldn't be intimidating, because some things take too many steps. So
we also chose recipes that we do that were more simple, and because we didn't want the book to be one of those chef-driven books where you are
a slave to process.
A really big recipe. You've got to go to a dozen places to find it. You have to do 2 or 3 days of prep. It was supposed to be really, because when we cook at home, and the nature of our food is pretty much show up within an hour or so, have a meal. And that's kind of how we wanted to present the book.
And when you're home, it's so hard trying to put these things together. And if you have friends over, you'd rather be having a little wine with your friends and maybe doing something very simple other than sweating in your kitchen and stressing. Like, that's the last thing we all need. So we wanted to be therapeutic. So there's that.
And it's fun to cook together with people. Someone can get their hands all oily with the jalapeno, and you can stay away from that and give them the onions so they can go in the corner and cry.
Now, do you have any recommendations for if sea bass is not at the local market or available? What would be your top 2 picks local?
Tuna's great.
Scallops.
Scallops
prawns,
work.
Shrimp, scallops. Whitefish is really good.
Cod, snappers.
Yeah, snapper.
Lots of options.
Sole's not so good. It's kind of mushy.
And salmon, you can even do, wild king salmon, which is in season right now, is delicious raw, very beautiful raw. So there's that. And then the next dish is one
We're
of
doing
the,
roasted or grilled kale
yeah.
with a farro salad. And farro, and that's boiling water. Farro. Farro is kind of a fun thing.
So this dish is a side dish, but it can be a main course too, because it has so much nutrition and value. So
You
it
just
does,
make more of it.
yeah, and then you can pair it with other things. So there's there's a vinaigrette to this, which dresses the farro, and I was just kind of cleaning up some
Oh,
kale.
I should have made the vinaigrette, right?
No, it's fine. It's right here.
Because it's supposed to macerate for 10 minutes.
Anyway, so we've got
So
boiling water.
we blew that.
No, it's
We'll,
fine.
we'll work on that.
No, it's fine. Go ahead and add the farro.
Well, first,
Talk
you're
about
going to want to
farro.
cook the farro because I guarantee you this stuff is inedible when it's raw. Yeah. And it's just a kind of grain. It's been cut, it's been husked and out of its shell. And farro, as our old one of our old chefs used to say, you can't cook it long enough. You really can't overcook it. Of course, that's a little bit of a lie, but you really need to cook it 30, 40, 50 minutes, depending on your stove, depending on how much you're boiling it. You should bring it to a little simmer. And you definitely want to season it with a bunch of salt in the water.
How many people know farro? Okay, great.
All right. You already know this.
You've cooked it at home. Remember, it has a little trace of gluten, but it is a very small amount of gluten. It's one of those great super grains that just give you lots of protein and nutrition. So while that's cooking, this recipe.
We're not going to wait because we have a jar
I was
already
chatting.
cooked.
I was chatting them
I know,
up.
but, you know,
That was my job.
I have more to say. No,
We do not.
we don't.
We do not wash it. I think if you're buying an imported farro from Umbria or parts of Italy, it's ready to go out of the bag. Yeah.
There's no rinsing. It doesn't need water. It's not part of its bag.
But this side dish is fun to do. This will be on the menu at Foreign Cinema quite a bit. It accompanies different kinds of protein. It also stands
Pork
alone.
chops, steaks, chicken.
It's really good for brunch too if you wanted to poach some eggs. So this is incredibly versatile. So I'm just tearing up two kinds of kale. This is lacinato kale. This is curly kale. And hand me the olive oil. So while the farro cooks, I'm just gonna just dress this with olive oil and some salt, and then we're gonna grill it. But you can roast it too, very simply. And it's
350-degree oven.
Yeah, it's my
little
favorite.
Oil, little salt, throw on a sheet tray. Give it 5-6 minutes, or until it's the texture that you want. It's okay sometimes if it gets a little burned because it's kind of crispy, and it's kind of fun to eat that way. Like chips, you can make kale chips out of it.
So what we've got is I've sprinkled a little water and there's oil and salt on this kale, and this is a great little grill. If you don't have one,
Everybody has a grill at their home, right?
right on their laptop.
No, you could just do it in a cast iron pan.
So I don't know if you guys can see this, but I grilled it just for like maybe 2 minutes, and so it got crispy but sort of tender.
Don't burn that.
The bronzed edges. If you want to do something, you can think about vinaigrette.
But you took it over there.
I did, yeah.
Gotta walk all the way over
So
there.
this might take a little longer because I've kind of loaded up the grill. My daughter, I don't know if you guys have kids, but kids love roasted kale because it's a little crispy and salty and yummy. You guys cook for your kids? And who's got kids? Yeah. Oh, this is going to be good. Do they eat kale? Yeah, they like it, right? Where do you live? San Mateo. Okay. Are you Italian? Greek. Okay, so
That's on fire. Watch out.
it's fine.
So for the vinaigrette, it's really simple. And actually, we at home at work, we generally make vinaigrettes in big bowls. We have a dishwasher, a guy. That's all his job is. At home, if you use a jar, it's really simple. It kind of contains your mess, and you don't need to put in things like you don't need to use a whisk or anything. So this just calls for a little garlic, and it doesn't need to be chopped. We peeled it, and I got the little root off because that's my habit. Give it a little smash. And there's a recipe around here someplace I probably should be reading.
Oh, it's just acid and oil.
But
and
it
garlic.
called for 2 kinds of vinegar. This is sherry vinegar. Actually, that's a little too much. And this is a little white wine vinegar sitting in there at the garlic. You want to leave that in there for a few minutes. It's supposed to stay there maybe 10 minutes to kind of flavor it up. Then we're going to add some honey and some olive oil and salt. And I used up all the
Here's a
salt.
little salt.
Ah, there it is. I'll put the salt in now. You can, carefully measure it and all that, but generally at work, I always try to tell people, because they may not run around with measuring equipment, this is about 20 to 25% of the total. So we're going to end up having about that much oil in there. So for us, it's not a high acid vinaigrette. It's kind of just enough vinegar to flavor the oil. So this stuff's cooking away. It'll never be ready. We have more.
So that'll take about 25, 30 minutes.
Or 40.
When it's done, you
Like I
drain
say,
it and cool it.
this old sous chef, you could never overcook it. So we'll pretend that's been in there 10 minutes. It's really easy. Plus, once you have it in a jar, if there's some left over, you just put a lid on it and you can save it for the next day. I think that's the worst thing about cooking at home is you end up making a tremendous mess accidentally that just takes forever to clean up. So a little bit of honey. And apparently this is honey that you guys grew. Well, maybe
It's
not
Google
you,
honey.
but
Google
the folks
bees.
at Google. So we'll leave that in there. Honey stuck at the bottom.
While I'm grilling this, I'm doing it piece by piece. If you did it in the oven, it's much easier because the sheet pan roasted gently and evenly. Me grilling it here is just a little busy work, but you can certainly, if you were to grill it at home, just don't leave the grill. It's very fast. But the oven, it's about 15 minutes. Yeah, I'm doing olive oil and yes, and that actually helps it cook. So I did olive oil and salt. So I have some leaves that are crispy, and I do have some smoking kale. The hood's working, right?
We're smoking everybody out.
I'm going to dress the farro, but this won't be done in time. We do have cooked farro, and then we're going to just combine it with the kale. And
this isn't very scientific, but that's about it. It's got about almost a tablespoon of salt in it, little garlic, and then if you put a lid on it instead of a whisk, you can shake it up. It kind of makes it easier for you at home.
so
Now, the kind of oil. We use a lot of olive oil in the book, of course. We use some grapeseed, extra virgin olive oil, which is just the first pressing. We use, at home, sometimes use corn oil. So you can kind of use the kind of oil you kind of like. Safflower oil is good. Because some people don't like olive oil. Some people like peanut oil. Some peanut oils are really very clean tasting.
So again, you can have your farro cooked.
Wait.
You can have your kale grilled. You can have your vinaigrette made, and kind of just do it at the last second when if you're entertaining people. So this is another thing to do, or if you're just trying to come up with a really easy supper for yourself. So we were talking about how versatile this is. It could be on its own, or a couple of poached eggs on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this. Is just add a little bit of.
It's too dry. You need more vinaigrette.
You
need more of this. It's too dry.
Well, I was going to sprinkle it over the top at the end.
Yeah, sure.
So we're just sprinkling farro, the cooked farro, right over this. And room temperature is fine. This does not need to be hot at all. And then what we do, and you can do other things, you could add cherry tomatoes, or you could add whatever you think would be delicious. Whole beans, sliced prosciutto. These are canvas-like dishes in that you can add things that you love. So they serve as a way to you can actually make these recipes your own by finishing them with whatever you think you would like to try. So we're gonna just shave some cheese on here.
Here.
Whee! But Dee Dee's team already shaved it for us. So we've got this, is this pecorino or Parmesan? Beautiful. So look what Dee Dee's team did. So
Now note how that was done. You have to do this exactly like that at home. You have to get the nice pieces of parm and with a peeler, very carefully.
yeah.
You
So
can use a grater, you can chip it, you can do whatever you want.
Anyway, so this is the start
It's
of your
all
dinner
gonna
party.
taste good.
While you're getting your shower, everything's done, right? Thank you. Thank you.
Boom.
So you guys have any questions?
Somebody has a question. Okay.
I will ask a question just
Great.
in general because I love the approach of what you can essentially prep ahead of time. So the vinaigrette was a great idea. Obviously, you can get the farro cooked ahead of time. For how many people here like to cook at home? How many people get stressed out when cooking for large groups because of the timing? We all do. So any of these tips that you can share, I think, are super helpful because anything you can do ahead of time to allow that shower to happen, right? Really, really helpful for the home cook. So love those ideas.
We get stressed out at home too, but we also try to plan it and get things done so that when people come over, if we have a little group, whatever, that we're not just trapped at a kitchen cooking and they're over there. You're supposed to be with your friends. So a lot of stuff is some of the book is full of things that can be done in advance. One thing that we really love, we're Californians. I'm born here. Gayle is too. She's a local San Franciscan. Is that in the state and I was subjected to 11 years in the East Coast. And one thing is true in this state, there's a lot of amazing produce and always has been for the past lot of years. And so a lot of our cuisine and our cooking and where we come from and what we did for the past 35 years has really been based around this produce, fruit off the trees and whatnot. And so the idea of these great plums and peaches and cherries and using them in a savory manner and cooking them with pork or meat or chicken or duck or fish is just really part of our whole experience. So, and we like to take it and we season it with all sorts of spices sometimes. We roast them simply, just here they are, just being cut in half, the stones taken out. They get a little salt on them because this is supposed to be meant, this isn't a dessert. This is part of your meal. And it's great with grilled chicken or just whatever you're doing.
So, there's a lot of imperfect fruit out there. If you go to the farmer's market, you can actually help the farmer by buying the imperfect fruit. This is
and tell him it's imperfect. Let him know that you should get a discount on his fruit because it's imperfect. See how far you go with that one.
I'm going to put these in the oven and then we're going to talk about fruit just so we've got something. But your fruit's already ready. But why this is amazing is that people forget that fruit can be completely savory. And we have a whole page devoted to fruit as a savory side because chutneys, as you know, are sweet and acid. And we're always in our cooking looking for that profile of acidulation to help anything that we're cooking. Do you want to expand on that more?
Sure. It's a really great way if you have a not too ripe a peach. If you roast it, it'll be much better. It also has it's a little acidic, a little acidulation in it. That's very refreshing with, pork chop or grilled pork or pork stew or something. It adds a little brightness. I think a lot of the food that we do at Foreign Cinema isn't really high in acid, but it's one of the elements you taste: acid, sweet, salt, and a little spice.
And our palate is always jonesing for that slight acidulation because it
brightens things.
It brightens things and it actually makes things taste a little bit more clear when there's that tiny bit of acidulation. But you would never know that. You wouldn't taste a pork chop and a plum and go, oh, it's that acid combination that's really driving me to like this. It's just that there's this beautiful component to rich meat, like a pork chop or a duck breast, accompanied by just a simple piece of roasted plum, peach, or apricot, or cherries. Tonight we're serving
sometimes.
duck with roasted plums, and We also are using a few fresh strawberries on our baked goat cheese tonight. And we're not looking for sugar, we're looking for that acidulation counterpoint, because in your mouth it just feels so delicious and so satisfying. So what you're doing to do this is just removing a pit. And so I already have one tray in. And then when we're going to do like a roast pork, or what else do we, even roast chicken, some roasted
Apricots.
peaches next to that chicken is like nature's automatic chutney. Because in a chutney, there's sugar, there's aromatics, and there's acid. And that always makes things taste great. If you think about ketchup, it's really a chutney. It's actually a tomato chutney because of the spices, the acid, and the sugar in the tomatoes.
So most of the fruit that works best like this is stone fruit. Anything with a pit in the middle is really helpful. Stay away from melon.
Oh, and what's also revelatory, like if you were going to, do a couple pork chops, is if you had a cluster of grapes that you haven't finished eating, if you roast those grapes in the oven for just a few minutes until they the skin split and they're warm, and serve that with the pork, that's like a slam dunk. And it's super sexy. So this is what we've done with this fruit that Dee Dee found for us today. That's basically it. And then we're just roasting it in the oven. Sometimes I taste the fruit and make sure that we don't have to add sugar. Sometimes you do need to actually add sugar.
Salt, sugar, also in the back of the book, a lot of spice combinations you can put on top of it and give it a little bit more spicy, what is that?
This is brown sugar.
We make Ras Hanout, which is a really great spice mix. From some 5-spice recipes are in there. And that sprinkled on the top of the fish,
Fruit.
on top of the fruit, adds really a dynamic sort of taste.
The plums don't need anything because they're perfect. But the apricot was a little flat, so we've added a little sugar. We also use figs.
Salt.
And we can use some salt, which is right behind me.
I took it.
And we do cook with a lot of spices that we really haven't talked about today. In the back of the book, you guys get our flavor arsenal to all of the Foreign Cinema Cooking, which are our signature spice blends.
The farro's still cooking. Remember, you can't overcook it. That'll be cooking for a
Do you think you can
while.
get this thing to broil?
Do you have, are there any questions about fruit?
We're going to put this on the broil.
Apples work really good.
Yeah.
Apples, if you have some duck fat, you all have duck fat in the fridge. Coat the apples in duck fat and splash them with some liquor. And actually the fruit helps. Sometimes you put a little bourbon or brandy or cognac on it. Sometimes the fruit doesn't taste too good, and if you have something sweet liqueur, that'll help them be a little bit more robust.
So all year round, there's going to be beautiful fruit, even if you think there isn't fruit. Like even the dead of winter, January, February.
You have citrus.
We tend to
use
roast
citrus a lot.
pears. We roast pears or apples, and then fall we do quince and grapes. And then summertime you have a gamut. Springtime we tend to just take those first strawberries and include those in very simple preparations. But what's cool is just the iteration of being able to look at that in your fridge, and we're supposed to use up all of our scraps, right? Don't throw anything away, or try not to, because households are the biggest waste. We try to use up everything that we have, and that little bit of fruit that you don't think is going to be good enough could be fabulous roasted. So here's sort of a shot of peaches, cherries, grapes, figs, I think apricots, nectarines work. It's going to go pretty fast.
Figs are great. We use figs. Figs are very traditional.
Yeah,
and we make a lot of chutneys that work with fresh fruit. Chutney is great because they combine spice and acid and complex flavors that are we try to keep them really simple to make.
So you probably ask, why do we roast the cherry whole? That's because the pit actually adds flavor to the fruit while it roasts, so that there's that mild almond perfuming the cherry. So when you do eat it, you do have to remind your guests that there is a pit in there and there's a stem. We take the pit out of here because the pit can be a problem for your guests, and it doesn't need the pit to roast beautifully. So it's a different thing. And grapes, when they come in autumn, you can roast Cabernet grapes and Chardonnay grapes, even just your simple green grapes or red flame grapes at the standard farm, the market will be beautiful, very refreshing, even like with your steel cut oats in the morning. Or
You should be able to find that at the farmer's market. And you guys go to the local farmers markets around here? So they have grapes and everything. I mean, they have Hawaiian grapes, don't they? They should have muscat grapes and probably some Cabernet and stuff. They're great. They're not really great to eat, but once you roast them, that's when they're really good. Because they taste a little not so great when they're not turned into wine.
So what you're
They
looking
kind of like to be cooked.
what you're looking for is just sort of a breakdown of the skin. This is totally hot inside, but still hasn't expressed. So we're probably about 2 minutes away. We have it on maxi broil, so I wanted to show you. But Dee Dee has huge trays of beautiful roasted stone fruit that she prepared.
She's asked if we do food related to the movies that we show. We do not really do that, no. We could. Most of the movies that we show don't necessarily have a big food component. We have not shown Babette's Feast in years, which is, of course, a big movie about
People
a feast.
always asked us to do a Babette,
Yeah.
show the movie and then make Babette's Feast. I mean, that
sounds like a nightmare. Really, it just really sounds like a nightmare. You have a question?
Yeah, like
What's the thought trial?
How do you develop a new recipe?
So the question is, how do you develop a new recipe? Trial and error. Honestly, at this point, I think it's just we create spice blends. The spice blends kind of came out of shopping at the market 18 years ago at an Indian market to buy our spices and trying to figure out what to do with some of them. And one of the most famous things we do in here is this little ajwan, which is a type of wild cumin, also known as bishop's weed. And this little seed looks like cumin, but it doesn't taste like cumin. It tastes a little more funky. And so I got a bag of it, and we're like, well, what the hell do we do with this stuff? And went back to the restaurant and filling with it and discovered that it tasted good with these little chocolate nibs that we had picked up from Scharfenberger when we went on a chocolate tour at the little plant in Berkeley. And we put the two together, and it came out to be this really great rub. Things really happen by mistake, and you just kind of get used to the fact that when you've been cooking for 30 years, you kind of know how things work together. So the more you do it, the more easier it is for you to kind of put things together. Trial and error. And plus, we write a menu, kind of based that day or that week on the kind of things that we're getting. So kind of go down, you look at it, go, oh, well, these will be together, and that goes on the menu.
But it's funny. You're always looking for inspiration. Inspiration comes in a lot of different ways, and you're trying to always inspire your staff.
Other chefs' cookbooks?
So we tend to look at a lot of cookbooks, and sometimes you're just looking at something very beautiful at the market. It's as simple as that, and you're like, wow, I just want to. Or if you're writing a brunch menu, you're trying to just zero in on one ingredient that you really crave, and you try and work it into a dish that you can, infiltrate into the menu. So it really comes at a lot of different angles, I find. And sometimes when you're writing a menu every day at the restaurant, you are blessed with a walk-in full of various items, and you're just basically looking at an item and going, how can I use this tonight that will be fully, absorbed and used that day. So it really comes from different angles, inspiration. A lot of chefs, I know will
Some of
create
it's perspiration.
they'll create a dish. They'll just work on a dish for like a month, and then it's on the menu for years because that's their methodology. Because we're California kids, our process is really just trying to keep things very, very pure and have a lot of life force to the dish. Sometimes a lot of different layers sometimes can take away from that original ingredient that you're trying to promote. So we tend to kind of pull back and try and emphasize the purity of the thing that we love so much. But basically, the menu at Foreign Cinema is the thing that we crave. That's done.
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
So thinking back to when you first started working together, and then maybe there's a great little story here, I don't know. How have you stylistically differed in your approach to food, and how have you come together to what Foreign Cinema is now? Because I'm watching how you play off each other, and it's obviously very comical and a lot of fun to watch, and obviously there's a lot of authenticity behind your work here. But there's got to be a point where when you first started, you had different points of view on certain things. I'd love to hear one of those stories if you have one.
Oh, an argument? A food argument? What are
That's
you kidding?
easy. I don't think you guys have enough
What
time.
are you kidding?
I think you have to get back to work, right?
Well, we kind of started cooking we actually met at a restaurant in San Francisco a really long time ago, and that was one of the first restaurants that I had cooked before that, but we sort of came up together. And so the influences were pretty much similar at the same time. And then we both worked for Judy Rogers and Zuni Cafe in 1986. So, and that was sort of the birth of this. Gayle's also a painter and has a degree in art history. And I studied something totally different and ended up cooking as just sort of, at first I needed a job. And then became inspired, and then realized that it was a pursuit that was worth pursuing. And eventually, when you get to that point, you just kind of move forward. So, and that's kind of about the way it is. Now, do we differ? Yeah.
That's good, because there's a yin and a yang.
Yeah.
And that you
I'm more apt to put aioli on something.
Yeah, and I might.
A lot of it.
I don't know what I would do as I know that we have chefs that work for us. You know, your biggest job is to taste food and to get it on the right path. I'd say that John has an amazing palate, and he's a technician. And I am more, I don't know, I'm different. But we have the same goal, and that is to make sure that the food is really pure and bright and expresses our passion. And so, he might, I don't know, that's a hard question. But we do play off each other. When we were really nitty gritty in it every day, like 7 days a week, no breaks, 16-hour days. They're long days now, but not that like that. They're more organized. We have a fuller staff, but we were there all the time. It was maybe an argument on how to use a chanterelle. Like, okay, well, I see the chanterelle with the sea bass tonight, roasted with artichokes. No, they should be in the omelet. We really need to do an omelet for supper. We need to put them there. So, I mean, I think sometimes we might differ on where an ingredient might go, but I think today we're pretty much aligned, but we do have differences at the restaurant. They're just hard to.
People say there's a difference in the menus that I write or Gayle writes.
Yeah.
Or sous chef writes.
But it's a compliment, because the restaurant gets to have the female and the male and the yin and the yang, and that's really a beautiful balance. But we were talking about the cheese board. This roasted fruit would be beautiful, just like a little fresh goat cheese, or, just for dessert, you could just have this. So that concludes our demonstration.
Well, I know that I'm going to make another reservation to go back to Foreign Cinema, and hopefully we'll see you there. A huge thanks to our chefs.
Thank you.